Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED. June the 3rd is our date, 2017. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week here on KMED. We'll talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics through 8 years and almost 400 shows. And today is I like this type of show, Joe, because we get some great information for our listeners right from the proverbial horse's mouth, because the county assessor, Dave Aerosmith, is with us today, and we're going to be hearing from him in just a minute. I like that. It's good stuff.
Oh, it really is. It demystifies that whole process of how your property is assessed for value and how that tries to keep up with the market, the real estate market that's moving so fast right now here locally.
Well, there wasn't much going on probably in that office a few years ago, but I'll bet it's a bustling place right now. Anyway, Guy Giles is also here in the house. Guy is, of course, our resident mortgage expert from Bank 34 Mortgage. Guy, how you doing, bud?
Man, I'm all right.
And just before we get on with the assessor here, and we'll talk about rates a little bit later on in the show. How you been doing? Busy, or tell me what's going on in your world?
Well, we're busy again. I don't. It's just it comes. I don't feel like I'm completely slammed. I only stayed at work until about 7 or 8 at night these days.
Okay,
so
that's good. Yeah, that's all right.
It's not the worst.
Weekend letters of pre-qualification, the Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, it feels like every weekend I spend at least 5 or 6 hours working. So it is busy.
So but the point is, it's the market itself is still pretty darn robust. There's still a lot of demand. You're still selling a lot of stuff.
There's way more demand than there is houses. I think that's our biggest issue.
And this is a supply and demand business. It's absolutely true. That's a good lead-in, actually, because I'm curious as to, of course, when Guy said he wanted to bring have Dave Aerosmith join us today, the county assessor. You have something in the back of your little mind, because that's really important stuff that he brings to the table, isn't it?
Oh man, yeah, it's good information. Everybody always asks. I get most of my buyers are from out of town, and there's a lot of states like California that just go off of a certain percentage on your house, and we're not really like that. And I'm sure he can go a lot deeper into when and how they assess.
And people want to know all sorts of questions about property taxes and this and that, and
purchase,
those kind of things. And you look at them. Anyway, Dave's here with us. Dave, first of all, welcome to the show. This is your first time with us, and we appreciate that you coming in.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
We've had many of your predecessors over the years come in here and spend some time with us, and we've learned so much from them about how the assessor works and all the kinds of things that go on, because your office is probably touches more people than most county offices do, right?
I'm sure that's true. I mean, we're out knocking on people's doors and visiting with, stepping in their homes and visiting with them, and not every department gets that opportunity.
Yeah. Now, this is the first time for you here, but you've been a residential and a commercial appraiser in the assessor's office here for a long time. Tell us when you started and that kind of thing.
Well, I started back when Ray Stewart was the assessor. And began as a residential appraiser. That's a good entry level for appraising, and then and we have more residential accounts than we do commercial and
accounts,
industrial.
Sure.
So it's easier. We have more openings for residential than we do commercial and industrial.
Did you go through one of those apprenticeships that appraisers have to go through to become an appraiser, and those kind of education that we've heard about?
I had to take a state test. That was it.
That was it. Interesting, isn't that part of the thing? Okay, continue. I'm sorry. Continue on.
And that was before computers. I had a PC Junior, one of the first computers that came out. It wasn't even a full-fledged IBM computer. It was like it's like for at home. And I took that to the office, and the assessor told me I was playing with that was a toy, and I could only use it on my break time. And
well, of course, and then when Josh Gibson left, Dave stepped up and Dave ran, and you won, and so you're an elected official of Jackson County. And so it seems that tell us about inside your office today. I mean, I would assume that you've got to be really, really busy, because there's a whole lot of real estate activity going on in this county.
We are very busy. We use this time of the year, January through July, normally to get out and look at brand new construction and get that on the tax roll.
New construction, okay.
We appraise property as of January 1st, so we hold off the new construction. We started on January because if something isn't there in December, doesn't make any sense to visit the property. So if anything started after January 1st, that's what we're interested in picking that new construction up.
Picking that up. What is it about new construction that, or people? I'm trying to think of the.
First off, we have some.
Well,
we go look at that's a big plus the last couple of years.
We have a lot of that going on. There's no question about that. What else are the activities in it? You got appraisers. You're doing a lot more beyond
industrial,
that.
Yeah.
We do. When our new construction period is over, then we'll start going door to door and checking our records for accuracy, and we'll do that for 3 or 4 months, and then the tax bills go out, and then we're kind of locked in the office answering questions about those bills.
Okay. Now tell people, one of the things that we always see in real estate and Guy is the real market value. When you print up out of the Jackson County website, your property values and blah, blah, blah. And it prints up there with the real market value. There's an assessed value, and those kinds of things, right? I mean,
and you always wish you had the county assessor with you to answer that question when your client asks.
Especially if someone sees it. A lot of buyers take a look at that and say, well, what does this mean? What does this mean, right? Isn't that true?
Man. Yeah. I mean, if they know about that front counter, which is an awesome tool,
all
by
right.
the way. When I called you the other day to ask if you wanted to be on the show, I was literally on there looking something up. So you can check permits, you can do all kinds of
Well, it was
cool
really
stuff.
interesting. Have you heard that I think Zillow has been sued because their Zillow's estimates are so inaccurate? They've been sued.
Not a newsflash there, but they should have.
But people rely on real market value that's placed by the assessor on their property, right?
That's correct.
Tell people, Dave, if you would, how you come to that real market value and what that means.
We analyze sales every year, properties that have sold, and we compare that sales price to the tax roll value.
Okay.
And most of the time we'll either be will be a little high or we'll be a little low, and we analyze that. And let's say at the end of the day we realize we're 5% low. Well, then we take last year's value and increase it 5%.
And that's how you're getting to the. Okay, continue on.
Yeah.
All right.
So but new construction, we would actually do a brand new appraisal on that building.
So when you say come in and do a new appraisal, this is confusing to me. Remember when we hear different builders of Brad Bennington and everyone, they talk about that. And you come in, new construction, you're going to get an appraisal a physical appraisal by you, right?
By the assessor's office.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Everyone.
And one of the big things is helping people understand what the market value is today compared to what they're going to see when they pull up the record on the county. Because January 1st, we might be looking at a property that has been assessed at that level up to 18 months. There can be a pretty significant gap, especially in a market that's moving, Jackson County, at double-digit increases for property values the last few years.
When it's moving, yes, that's a very when you're in a moving market, that's very true. What happened? Our appraisal date is January 1st. The tax bill doesn't come out until 10 months later in October.
Right.
Well, when we're doing our January 1st valuation, we're looking at all the sales that happened in the prior year.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So we're using all of the prior year data to estimate a January 1st valuation, and then the taxpayer sees the bill in October. So that could be based on a sale 2 years prior.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're pulling up numbers off the MLS of sales for the last 6 months within a quarter-mile radius that are very really up to date, up to the cutting edge of a few days before sometimes. That gives you a real indication of what the actual market value is. Yeah.
Yes. Right. But we're also seeing double-digit increases in values, right? In different places.
But our records will indicate that too.
But you've seen a lot of that, right?
But over a long period. I mean, they might have doubled since the recession, but not like every year.
No.
Well, we had
the last 3 years.
The last few years, they've gone to double. They've done double digits out of this,
County,
and that's what kind of got
10
people.
to 12%.
Is well, it's a lot going on. I suppose.
Well, it makes a lot of owners happy.
Mm-hmm. So we know that. If you build a new home, you know that you're going to get a physical inspection by an assessor and put an appraised value on that property.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And how many new homes are we building that the county is getting a chance to take a peek at this year?
I don't have those numbers.
It just popped into my mind. It's
Well,
like,
but you would go.
no, I just thought, yeah,
Yeah.
because we're building.
Okay, but Dave, wouldn't you go into the city and do it too?
What's the question?
Wouldn't you go in? Joe said that how much does the county do? But don't you go into to the city of Medford?
Oh,
and
when
if
I
there's
say
new
the county, I
construction?
mean county,
Everybody,
Right.
Yeah,
That's
from
not
border to
that.
border. Yeah.
Okay.
So that,
which
the
includes
number,
every city.
the number would be a lot because there's a lot of building that's going on. I would imagine your inspections for those new properties have spiked the last few years.
Now, what about if I own my home? You said at one time, I think that you at one time state law had it. Every home had to be physically looked at and re-looked at every so many years. That's not true anymore, correct?
It was required every 6 years. The assessor would make a brand new appraisal. Yeah.
Okay, but not anymore.
That requirement's not out there now.
So you're out there doing these things, as you said, by sales, like sales, and that kind of thing.
Right.
For
Although we do spend 3 or 4 months a year out, doing the door to door, but it's not a state requirement. But we still try to do that and keep our real market values up to date with a new appraisal.
Well, it's good to hear you say that. I think the real market value, people look at that, and that is almost like a sacred number. Yeah. Don't you think, Guy?
Oh,
I mean that's a big thing.
Yeah, I get a lot of word about that, and they go to Zillow and they go to the county if they are savvy enough to go check it out. And there's a lot of sites and a lot of good information and bad information out there for sure. But people do take it very, very personal when they look at what their house is assessed at. And I love the calls when I get, well, I changed out all the light bulbs. My house should be worth $10,000 more than it was.
Do you get many? Do you remember when we started our show, which was the recession was still a pretty good clump, and we were always telling people, they were upside down in those values. Remember, and people were wanting to get reductions in property taxes and why you weren't, that kind of thing. Dave, do you deal much with that today, or is that a thing of the past right now?
When you mean upside down, are you talking about the value to
the value? Yes,
to the loan,
not to the loan, to the is that what it is, or to the property?
To the loan,
okay,
to
the loan. Okay.
Yeah, because our property values drop below our.
Yeah, I guess it would be assessed value compared to what.
No, but if my real market value falls below my assessed value for so much period of time, doesn't that give me a reduction in my property tax at some point?
All right. There's a real market value.
Okay.
That's our estimate of what the property would sell for.
Okay.
In 1997, a legal value was created. I call it a statutory value. We name it maximum assessed. If you're in the business, you call it MAV, and real market value RMV. Assessed value is either one of those. It can change from year to year. 1 year it could be real market value, next year it could be the MAV value. The assessed value is whichever of those two numbers is the lowest. And when in 1997, when MAV was created, it was 10% below RMV. So RMV was taking off from until the recession, let's say 10% a year. Okay. MAV is growing 3%. MAV was generally the assessed value because it was the smaller of the two numbers. And because it was growing at 3%, people believed their assessed value was growing at 3%, and it was limited to a 3% growth.
That wasn't
but
the
only
case.
the
That's
MAV
not the
value
case.
is limited to
only the assessed value of your property. Yeah.
And then when the recession hit, our real market value fell below MAV over a number of years. MAV kept kept growing at 3% during the recession.
Because it had kept pace.
And people thought that how can our bills be going up 3% when we're in a recession? But the MAV value grew 3% for a little while. RMV was falling, and at some point RMV fell below. And now, because this is the smaller number, the tax bill was based on RMV for a few years, and now that's come back up.
And the tax bills are generally lower than the real market value is too. But although some of them I see that they're even, it depends if it's a new place that you've just reassessed. The real market value is going to be the same as the assessed value. Remember, that was one of the issues about that the state government was doing, Joe. They wanted to tax that. If you did a transaction, they would then tax that part of it. And anyway, so those are just kind of things that are out there, and because we find
one of the advantages Oregon has our property tax system has over California, we were mentioning you have out-of-staters come in, is I'll get the question, well, then I bought a property here in Oregon, and now my tax bill is going to be based on that purchase price, and that's what happens in California.
Right.
But in Oregon, you get to step into the shoes of the seller, so that doesn't happen. The tax statement continues on as if there was no transfer.
Interesting. So,
because if you sell the house, say you sold it for $1 million, all of a sudden you're gonna that's the new tax. That's the new that's the new assessed value of what the price was.
That's probably why so many people are moving here from California. It's a great incentive.
Crazy kind of thing. Well, we're gonna get a break coming up here, and by the way, we're talking with Dave Arrowsmith, who's the Jackson County Assessor, and Guy Giles from Bank 34 Mortgage, and we got lots more to talk about. I'm curious as to how you're dealing with rural properties now, with recreational marijuana out there and all that, what that value is doing to everything as well. And I know guys out there selling those things anyway, so we got to fund those. See, it's still going to fund that. Anyway, that's coming up next, The Real Estate Show. Pete and Joe, we're coming right back to KMED right after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED. June the 3rd is our date. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Next week here on the show, Lance Landers will be along from Ionic Estate Sales, and we'll give you the do's and don'ts of estate sales and estate planning with that. Boy, it's a lot to it. And you don't want to, people can mess that up really a lot.
You really want somebody who knows what they're doing to handle that.
You really do, yeah. All those kind of things.
Benefit.
Of course, you can check out any of our past shows at realestateshowOregon.com. There's a pretty good variety of shows on there for everything from tiny houses, solar options, and new construction. How building affordable housing affordably is another one. And you had an interesting thing this week down at the city of Medford. You might tell folks about it regarding alternative housing or housing. Tell me what that was.
Just the Thursday noon Medford City Council meeting. Angela Durant from the Medford Planning Commission, who heads up their community development block grant program. It's federal funds that come into the local community and can be dispersed a number of ways, and it goes through the Housing Commission for the city of Medford. But they've identified blighted properties, purchased those, refurbished those, and turn them into affordable housing. They are working with private and nonprofit organizations and private developers to identify ways to support infrastructure for local income. So we're trying to find more ways for affordable housing to be out there, and there are a number of ways. $1.5 million each year goes towards some of these efforts, and Angela's agreed to come on and do a program with us because there are opportunities and partnerships that could be forged out there. If people just heard about them.
Well,
they could help in that effort that we all agree is a pressing issue.
Why don't you tell the city of Medford to lower their systems development charges, and that would be one whole thing that would get more affordable housing affordably.
Call the Bill Myers show for that one.
Get him on the phone. I mean, I've seen more people.
That's a different show.
Charges and everything. It's government is so many times gets in the way of trying, for so many people who want to do things. And anyway, but that's a whole other story.
Anyway. And Angela and the planning are partnering with so many different.
Well,
it's a real success story, and she had some specific success stories she shared today.
Good.
Good for people to know about.
Maybe they can get rid of the blighted houses. That would be nice.
There
was
also progress on
government
that
could do that. Maybe they can do that.
They identified 3 more properties, and 4 of the 5 that were on the list are being rectified because they're getting a response and they've addressed the issue. So give them some credit there.
Well, today here on the show, Dave Arrowsmith, who's the Jackson County Assessor, is with us, along with Guy Giles from Bank 34 Mortgage. And Guy, before we continue on here, just tell us people right now what are kind of the average or the kind of the rates that you've been quoting to people lately here in your world.
Well, pardon me, my little disclaimer. I
know this.
I can always say it for him.
I can say it too. I know that. I know that's just not. It's not for everyone. Okay.
There's about 26 variables. So I mean, if you're factoring in a really good credit score and a really good down payment on a conventional loan, you can expect really low 4s to 4%. So they're still really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't complain, and I'm down in the mid to high 3s, depending on credit score on my government stuff. So my VA, I mean, 3.625, 3.75, right in there without charging points. Whenever I'm talking rates, I'm not charging people money for that rate. So definitely, we have some good rates out there still. And, from talking to the Fed, I thought we'd get into that a little bit on the last segment, but, there's some information coming out on what's really to come on the rates. And I don't know if you guys want to dig into that now, because I know Dave's got to take off at some point.
It's going to be.
I want to hear about it.
It's going to be bad. Is it going to be bad or good? Just tell me that. What?
From what the Fed was talking about, they buy about $30 billion a month right now, and they're going to taper that off a little bit. They're not going to just pull out. They're not going to sell off stuff like they were talking about before. So it's going to be a gradual thing. I do expect a rate hike next month of about 0.25%. That doesn't directly affect our long-term mortgage stuff, but overall, it's an indication that the economy is getting a little bit stronger. And when that happens, people are putting their money into the stock market and a little bit less into the mortgage-backed securities. So in a nutshell, now that you've blown my whole fourth segment.
Why would you put it into stocks when you can buy some real estate right now? I mean, the stocks even are coming down lately. Did you notice that? But anyway, it's we want people to invest, right? Invest in real estate. I mean, we need multiple housing. We need all sorts of different housing. That's what we talked to Dave about here in a little bit. Also, is about that kind of thing. Rules may be changing, I hope.
And Guy, one point our listeners need to know: if they're considering buying, we're still in this golden period of interest rates that makes your affordability index really accessible as it's going to be. Say, if we look 5 years ahead. We probably will see interest rates where they are right now.
Definitely, the trend is going to be up.
Yeah.
It's not going to go up, I don't think, as fast as people were thinking. Again, it just had to do a lot with the Fed. They have about $4.4 trillion on their books right now. And as people pay down their mortgages, they refinance, they do different things, they're just not going to be buying up as much as they were. So I don't think this thing's going to get as ugly as fast as people might have once thought.
Are you doing more FHA loans or conventional loans?
Most of my stuff's conventional.
It's conventional. That's the trend. That's a trend. It's what we're seeing. It's what people are doing. Yes.
Yeah, it depends on the buyer. If I can stick somebody into a conventional loan, if they can get a little bit of a gift from a family member or somebody, I try to encourage that, even though the rates are a little lower on the government stuff. That mortgage insurance just does not go away. So I don't like to, especially in a rate environment that's going up. If you look down the road, refinancing isn't going to be as attractive with a higher rate, even if you're getting out of the mortgage insurance. So if we can stick somebody in, the investors realize that if you have mortgage insurance, that there's a little bit more security with that loan, because that mortgage insurance company is going to take the hit on the first part of that loan. So the rates really aren't unattractive if you have the mortgage insurance. So if you can do it and you have a decent credit score, I would try to go for the conventional all day long. Come see me and we can talk more about, which direction to go. I always try to do what's best for the client, because I don't want them throwing cans at me at Costco on the road.
We don't want. We don't want anybody doing that to you as well. Well, Dave, the Aerosmith, the Jackson County assessor, you're hearing him talk about this. So there's going to be a lot of activity going on. I can't wait we'll have the new SOMLS stats out. It'll be interesting to see the March, April, May stats and see if they were as robust as we anticipate them to be. I don't know, because remember, sales were down the first 3 months of the year because there was low inventory, things like that. So there's still not a great deal of inventory back, but there's still a demand. It's the demand that's out there that is what's so interesting and driving so much of this.
I think a cool question that at least was on my mind, going into here. I mean, again, we don't reassess our houses when they're sold. I think that everybody's kind of interested in knowing what would trigger your house getting assessed, or when do you do it, and things like that. And I know it sounds like you go out for about 3 or 4 months in a year, and you guys just assess houses. But is there like a target that you guys go for there, or is it just kind of random? Or
we get what would trigger a visit from us would be when a permit is pulled. A permit in the city. Right. If you live in the city, you'll go to the city planning department and get a permit to add a room or build something, or to add a pool, or whatever the requirements are for a permit. Those will get pulled. Every city has
they have a record of that.
Yeah, and the county issues permits too, and around December we'll get a copy of the permits that have happened all year long, or we might get them periodically.
So you're doing that right now. I mean, you're out there with your appraisers, and you have a bunch of them in your office
right now. Exactly.
So people who have pulled permits, have made rooms, you're going to go physically re-inspect those again and reevaluate those.
Those are the ones we're doing now. That's what would trigger it, is a permit. Although sometimes people will voluntarily call the office or come in and say, "Hey, I put up something. Can you give me an idea how that's going to affect my taxes?" And then
really,
yeah.
I don't think I would ever do that, but I don't know.
Haven't you made a bunch of improvements?
No, I haven't made any improvements in my house. No, what they're saying is that permitted if you add rooms to them and you add those, that's what's going to trigger that.
Your new tile. I don't think your new tile.
My new tile and my new doors are not going to qualify to be reevaluated. Yeah.
Now, I'd like to point out when let's say a person makes some sort of an improvement to the property, if it's under $10,000, that will add that value to their real market value, but that we don't add that value to their maximum
to the tax value.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You'll add that to the real market value, but not the assessed value.
Yeah, it could increase their sales price.
Sure.
Well, check off all of my projects right there. We're under 10K.
See the things we learned, Dave? Look at all this spouting out of here from you and Guy today. The Real Estate Show, one more segment to go. We're with Dave Aerosmith, Jackson County Assessor, Guy Giles from Bank 34 Mortgage. Pete and Joe are coming right back after this. The Real Estate Show rolls on KMED. June the 3rd is our date today. Wow, the weather been improving over the last few weeks. School's almost out, by the way. You know, they're having graduations are coming up.
What's up in the backyard at my house?
Oh, your pool is up. That's right.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's on.
Yeah, it's
all 3 feet of it.
It's a fun time of the year. I think the interesting thing about the real estate market right now is you go into summer, you know, and there's usually so much more inventory than generally. You know, I was looking back at just a few years ago, there was like over 1,100, properties out there, 1,200 of them.
Yeah.
Now there's only like 700.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that, that's not a lot. And of course, if you go break them down by price categories and things, you can really see a difference there of what's selling and what's not. But what Guy Giles tells us, Joe, is that no matter what, you got to be pre-qualified right now. There's a difference between pre-approval and pre-qualified, as we know. Yeah. And the difference of the pre-qualified, you really have to have that now to have any kind of a chance, don't you? Especially if you're in a lower price area where you might be in multiple offer situations, correct?
And
or what?
Up to 450 is going to be multiple offers if it's a good price property.
Yeah,
man. Every time I write a letter nowadays, it's a multiple offer situation. You know, the days of people coming in and just asking for the world are over. So, you know, I think it's really important to come in, get fully credit underwritten, because if you're going up against somebody that's just gone in, you know, I've said it before, and just gone online and thrown in some information, you know, and you can really go in with a pre-approval and can come in early enough to do it, because it'll take us, you know, a week and a half or 2 weeks to get you fully credit underwritten. You know, that's not something that happens in a day, because we have a lot of live deals that are going on also that, you know, are going to take precedence because we close our loans on time. So, you know, but we do have a staff of underwriters that are pre-doing these. And the nice thing about it is, if you get, you know, Linda's one of our underwriters, if you get her and she pre-does you, she's the one that's going to get your file at the end. So there's not going to be surprises where it goes to another underwriter and they might have a little bit of a different take. You know, I mean, Fannie and Freddie and the government stuff, you know, they have their guidelines, but there's a little bit that's left open to interpretation. And if you can go in and you can, you know, if you had a large deposit, or if you've had, you know, a change in your income or something, we can address that now. Then we're not addressing it in the middle of a loan. And pretty much is all you're waiting for is the appraisal to come back and make sure you have a clean title report at that point. So there's some definite benefits to coming in and doing that.
And if you're a listing agent and you're accepting multiple offers, someone is pre-approved and someone is pre-qualified, and the numbers are the same, you don't even waste any time with it. It's the pre-qualified person you're going to go forward with because they're further down the line.
Well, sellers are savvy enough to know this now, and so you have to deal with that. No question. I mean, it's the reality of the game today. More than anything. Yeah,
the only thing that's going to be a little bit more attractive is just a full-on cash buyer. And I went up against one of those yesterday, and our guy went in $6,000 over, and this cash buyer had gone in $6,000 over. Also, it's insane out there what's going on. You know, and I feel for these appraisers and these assessors just trying to keep up with what's going on, because they're always looking in the rearview mirror trying to get their values.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear the assessor. He had to leave here today, but they're busy. They got a lot of stuff going on in there, and geez, you know,
our cities and our county growing by the day, and new houses are going up, and that's going to continue for years to come.
I think he said they had 13 appraisers in there now. I think few years ago where they had 2 or 3. I remember they didn't have anybody. They didn't have anybody in the office.
Ghost town in that department and the planning.
It was
department.
like the building department. They had nobody in there, and now they're just like bursting at the seams because there's so much activity going on. Other loans, credit scores today that you were, I know they're different for different loans, aren't they? They're not the same all the way across.
I mean, and it's like on, if you want to get any kind of a decent rate on a conventional loan, you really want a 660, 680 credit score. So it's not that you can't, do them lower than that. But the better you can get your credit score, and that's another reason to just come in and talk to me because, we have credit scenarios. I am not a credit repair guy, but I tell you that I have a whole lot more incentive to direct you the right way than somebody that's going to charge you every month for the next 4 years to try to repair your credit. So, we can at least kind of give you some ideas. And again, I can't stress it enough. I'm not a credit repair person, but we do have some pretty nice tools that we can run for you, and we don't charge something to do that. And even if you're at a 730 credit score, and, we can just say, hey, pay this down or do this little thing.
Debt-to-income ratio.
I've had it. Well, the debt-to-income ratio, but also sometimes you can just play around a little bit with somebody's debt and maybe get their credit card down just a little bit, and that'll bump their score up 5 points, and then you're into the next bucket on a better rate. And, 1/8% is nice over the 30 years if we can get you worked on a little bit. So it's good to just come in. When you have a signed contract, that's not time to go shopping for a loan. You should really be doing it, ahead. And, like I said, I'd put my rates up against anybody in the country. So, come on in and see me no matter what. How
much of a down payment are required today on these different loans? Is it, I hear different stories from zeros, to 1 or 2%. I mean, tell me what the range is or what that is today.
Everything from 0 to 99% down. I mean, we have this Chenoa fund. I'm just at the end of doing my first one where, I can get 100% financing for somebody no matter where, no matter what their credit limit is, as long as their ratios fit, and it's an FHA loan.
Really?
If you make under 115% the median income, it's built in with a second mortgage. And so it's believe it or not, it's like the old 80-10-10, but it's it's an FHA loan, so you have 96.5% on your first. Your second, if you're making under that 115% of the median income, you don't even have to pay it back. It's a loan if you're over that. I haven't sold it a lot because I wanted to get through my first 1 or 2 of them and make sure that it was smooth.
Isn't that? Yeah.
But if you can come in with a down payment, it's good.
It's obviously good to have some down
skin
payment.
in the game.
Yeah. Skin in the game.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And the USDA, I haven't done one of those in 3 years, to be honest.
And tell me about sellers' closing costs and buyers' closing costs. What are you seeing, Guy, as loans close? Are sellers giving concessions to buyers, or generally not anymore right now?
They still are, but it's not what it was before. I had one of them push back on a contract that I got today, and they only asked for I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000, and they said, well, we'll give you a third of that, and you're going to rent us the house for 45 days after we do it. And it's just like, they are completely feeling their oats right now, for lack of a better word.
Well,
so, you can still get them. Sometimes it's going to depend, and that's why it's just good to have a good real estate agent that you're working with. I'd encourage you not to try to do this on your own.
I had some folks that tried to get in a little on the ground floor, a little low. Just recently.
Didn't work. It didn't work. Huh?
Came back, they had to put up $4,000 more in earnest money to prove their
to get the buyers to prove that,
their desire for the property.
All right.
Because the sellers weren't happy with
that's going to do it. You can catch Guy Giles. You can Google him at Bank 34 Mortgage. He'll be happy to help you. It was great to have Dave Aerosmith here. We'll have Dave back in the fall when your property tax statements come out and get him back in here, and we'll go over that again, right? That'll be a good one. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show. Have a great week, everybody, and God bless you all. We'll see you next Saturday here on KMED.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED Radio, presented by the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors, along with John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon and Bank 34 Mortgage. For guest contact information, download our free app, or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshowOregon.com. This show is produced by Table Rock Productions. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED. And thank you for making the Real Estate Show part of your weekend.